Have you ever wondered what happens when a child's voice is taken away, but his silent courage still manages to shake a courtroom to its core? The courtroom fell into an uneasy silence. All eyes were on the small boy sitting nervously at the witness stand. 7-year-old Noah Bennett, a boy who hadn't spoken a word in 6 months, sat clutching the leash of his faithful service dog, Max, a sleek black Labrador with eyes full of understanding. The judge, the lawyers, and everyone in the room waited tensely. Then Noah made a subtle hand gesture. Without hesitation, Max stepped forward and placed his paw on a photo of the defendant. The judge's face turned pale. What followed was a testimony unlike any other, a silent language between a boy and his dog that would expose a truth powerful enough to shake a system built on silence and prejudice. The incident that broke the silence. Noah Bennett was no ordinary child. Bright beyond his years, he loved stars, planets, and science. He had spent weeks preparing for the school trip to the Preston Science Museum, his notebook brimming with questions and his favorite NASA t-shirt pressed and ready. But that day everything changed. As Noah approached the museum entrance with his class, a security guard stopped him abruptly. "Ticket and ID," the guard demanded, eyes narrowing suspiciously. Noah presented his school badge, but the teacher and classmates had already moved ahead. Noah was left alone, isolated, under the harsh gaze of suspicion. "You sure you belong with this group, boy?" the guard asked, his hand resting near a taser. Another guard whispered, "Trouble with kids from the south side trying to sneak in," as if Noah's presence alone was a crime. Confused and frightened, Noah tried to explain, but he was dragged away from his group, taken to a small security office, while his classmates looked on in silence. A father's brutal defiance. When Noah's father, Isaiah Bennett, arrived to retrieve his son, the situation exploded. Despite Isaiah's calm request for an explanation, security guards shoved him against the wall. They called for police backup, painting Isaiah as a violent threat. Noah watched in horror as his father was tackled to the ground, a knee pressed against his neck, handcuffed and silenced, the guards whispering racial slurs under their breath. That day, a child's voice was stolen forever. Silence born from trauma. Noah's silence wasn't rebellion, it was a shield. The trauma of witnessing his father's humiliation left him unable to speak. Selective mutism took hold, the neurological prison of his pain. For months, Noah communicated only through nods and shakes. Doctors were baffled. Specialists doubted progress. But hope came in the form of Max, a specially trained service dog who would become Noah's voice. Max was no ordinary dog, intelligent, intuitive, and deeply bonded with Noah. Through a secret system of hand signals, Noah began to communicate again, slowly unlocking the silence. Fighting a rigged system, Isaiah faced false charges, and the museum painted a distorted picture. Guards as heroes, Isaiah as aggressor. With no voice, Noah was trapped. How could he testify? How could he help his father fight a system stacked against them? Enter Zara Collins, a young black attorney fearless in facing injustice. She saw the bond between Noah and Max as their strongest weapon. Together, they prepared to battle a courtroom unwilling to accept a boy's silent testimony, a boy who spoke only through a dog. The battle begins. From the moment they entered the courtroom, obstacles emerged. Judge Lawrence Patterson was dismissive and biased, cutting off objections, favoring the prosecution. Security guards testified, their stories full of contradictions. But Zara was relentless, uncovering hidden alliances between museum officials, judges, and prosecutors. A network designed to keep Noah silent. A silent language revealed at home, Noah and Max had developed over 100 unique signals, hand gestures, touches, eye movements, that Max responded to instantly. Max wasn't interpreting. He was Noah's voice. Zara petitioned the court to recognize this communication as valid testimony, knowing that the boy's fate depended on it. Would the judge allow this unprecedented testimony, or would Noah's silence remain his prison? The stakes are higher than ever. The courtroom was no longer just about Isaiah's freedom. It was about a system that refused to hear black voices. Noah's silence had become a symbol of the larger battle for dignity, justice, and truth. As the judge's gaze hardened and the prosecution sneered, Noah's hand twitched slightly, sending Max forward again. This was just the beginning. If you believe every voice matters, no matter how silent, hit that like button, share this story, and subscribe to follow Noah and Max's fight for justice. The sterile courtroom air was thick with tension as the hearing resumed. Every eye was fixed on the small figure of Noah Bennett, sitting rigidly beside his faithful companion Max. The black Labrador sat motionless, wearing the official service vest, a silent sentinel in a battle that no one expected a 7-year-old to wage. The prosecution's attorney, Victor Reynolds, rose confidently. His tailored suit and slick-back hair were the perfect mask for a man ready to crush the defense. His opening words dripped with calculated disdain. "Your Honor," he began, eyes scanning the courtroom, "we are dealing here with a child who has chosen silence, a child whose testimony is filtered through a dog's behavior, a practice unprecedented and scientifically unsound." He glanced dismissively at Noah, as if the boy's presence was a joke. "Allowing this communication to stand as evidence threatens the very integrity of our justice system." The judge's cold-eyed judge, Lawrence Patterson, adjusted his glasses, his steely gaze locking on defense attorney Zara Collins. "Miss Collins," he said curtly, "this is a court of law, not a circus. You claim this dog acts as a translator for the child's testimony?" Zara stood firm, her voice calm but charged with conviction. "Your Honor, Noah Bennett suffers from selective mutism, a trauma-induced condition that renders him unable to speak or write about the events he witnessed. Through rigorous testing and documentation, it has been proven that Noah communicates through a system of hand signals to his service dog, Max. Max then responds accordingly, acting as an extension of Noah's voice." She laid out stacks of medical reports, video evidence, and expert testimonies. Exposing a systemic conspiracy, as the courtroom drama unfolded, Zara began to unravel a deeper, darker truth. Security footage had been carefully edited, omitting the moments when Noah was first stopped and profiled by museum guards. Multiple witnesses who might have supported Isaiah's calm demeanor and Noah's innocence were intimidated into silence. Zara exposed connections that sent ripples through the courtroom. The museum's executive director, William Hayes, who had publicly denied any wrongdoing, was revealed to have close ties with Judge Patterson, having attended private fundraisers together. Assistant District Attorney Reynolds' wife worked for a public relations firm contracted by the museum to control negative publicity. Witnesses who had begun to speak out had mysteriously recanted or suffered unexplained threats. The courtroom murmured. Justice, it seemed, had been corrupted by power and prejudice. The struggle of a silent witness. Despite the mounting evidence, the prosecution launched an aggressive assault on the credibility of Noah's communication. Reynolds sneered during cross-examination. "Isn't it possible, Noah," he said, voice dripping with scorn, "that your father was the aggressor? That your memory is clouded by fear?" Noah's hands trembled slightly as he made a series of precise gestures. Max responded immediately, retrieving cards labeled no, fear, and anger. The dog's behavior was flawless, yet Reynolds persisted in portraying the communication as manipulation. The judge interrupted only occasionally, his interruptions favoring the prosecution's aggressive tactics. A father's hope, a mother's strength. Outside the courtroom, Diana and Isaiah clung to each other, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Isaiah whispered, "Noah's strength amazes me. His silence isn't weakness, it's his courage." Diana nodded, eyes glistening. "Max is his voice. Together they're fighting against a system that refuses to listen." Their battle was not only legal, but deeply personal. A fight to reclaim their son's dignity and to expose a culture of systemic racism cloaked in the guise of security. The breakthrough, scientific validation. The tide began to turn when Dr. Monica Rivera, a renowned child psychologist specializing in nonverbal communication, took the stand. She described how Noah's communication system with Max was tested under blind conditions. Questions were posed to Noah without others knowing the answers, and Max's responses were consistently accurate. "This is not guesswork," Dr. Rivera asserted. "This is a legitimate and reliable method of communication that allows Noah to overcome the neurological barriers caused by his trauma. Her testimony was backed by detailed data showing over 97% accuracy in Noah's responses, lending a weight that even the skeptical judge could not ignore. The emotional toll and hidden threats. But the battle was far from over. As the courtroom proceedings intensified, so did the pressure outside. The Bennett's home was vandalized with racial slurs. Unmarked vans trailed Diana on her way to the hospital. A former museum employee who offered to testify suddenly withdrew after an anonymous break-in at her apartment. Threats escalated. Noah's therapist abruptly stopped sessions, citing professional concerns. The school debated banning Max from classrooms. Every step forward was met with resistance designed to intimidate and silence. A silent signal that spoke volumes. On a tense morning in the courtroom, after hours of testimony, Noah did something extraordinary. Under Zara's careful questioning, he was asked about the exact sequence of events the day of the museum incident. Noah's fingers moved swiftly, signaling to Max, who retrieved a notebook and pencil. In his careful handwriting, Noah wrote, "The video starts too late. Show what happened before." The courtroom gasped. This was the first time Noah had produced a written statement about the incident. The edited museum footage, when replayed with this revelation, was exposed as deliberately incomplete. The initial profiling and hostility toward Noah and Isaiah were glaringly clear. The judge's reluctant nod. Though Judge Patterson showed clear frustration, he allowed the evidence. He ordered a recess, warning attorneys to keep the proceedings respectful. But even he could not conceal the impact of Noah's silent testimony, communicated through Max, on the jury and observers. For the first time, Noah's voice was heard, not in spoken words, but in undeniable truth. What happens when a system is challenged? Behind closed doors, whispers swirled. How could a silent boy and his dog upend years of institutional bias? How could the law accommodate a witness who spoke in signals and paw prints? The Bennett story was no longer just a fight for one family. It was a rallying cry against injustice that resonated far beyond the courthouse walls. Preparing for the next battle. As the hearing adjourned, Zara gathered the family. "This is just the beginning," she said firmly. "The system will fight harder now, but Noah and Max have shown us the way." Isaiah squeezed Noah's shoulder. "We'll fight as long as it takes." Diana wiped tears from her eyes. "For Noah, for all of us." Noah reached down to stroke Max's ears, the silent signal of trust and strength. And in that quiet moment, the courtroom war continued, with a silent boy and his loyal dog leading the charge. Do you believe a voice can be heard without words? If Noah and Max's story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to follow the fight for justice beyond silence. The dawn broke cold over Chicago as the Bennetts arrived at the courthouse for the final trial. The once silent boy, Noah Bennett, now held his head high, still unable to speak aloud, but armed with the unbreakable bond he shared with Max, his faithful black Labrador. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, activists, and curious onlookers filled the benches, aware that this trial was more than a family's fight. It was a battle against a deeply entrenched system of injustice. The courtroom reconfigured for truth gone were the days of cramped chambers and whispered objections. The court had reluctantly approved a new layout, designed by Isaiah himself to accommodate Noah's unique needs. Max sat calmly at Noah's side, both framed by cameras capturing every subtle hand gesture, every twitch of an eye. Their silent language under scrutiny, but shielded by rigorous protocols. Judge Michael Davis, known for his fairness and clear-headedness, presided. He addressed the court firmly. This proceeding will recognize Noah Bennett's communication method as a valid and reliable form of testimony. All parties must conduct themselves with respect and decorum. A boy's silent testimony shakes the court. Zara Collins began the direct examination gently. "Noah, can you tell us who was with you on the day of the museum trip?" Noah's fingers moved, a delicate tap, a small circle, signals rehearsed countless times. Max responded by placing his paw on images representing his teacher and classmates. The jury watched, rapt, as Noah communicated the sequence of events. being separated from his group, questioned aggressively by security, and detained despite showing identification. When asked about his father's arrival, Noah's hands trembled, conveying the fear and chaos he witnessed. Max pressed close, a silent shield. The turning point. Evidence and revelations. The defense introduced the secretly recorded audio from Noah's hidden digital device, capturing the guard's racist remarks and the museum director's chilling command to make an example. The courtroom fell silent as the tape played, exposing a deliberate and systemic pattern of racial profiling. The prosecution scrambled, but the damage was done. A judge's unwavering stand for justice. Judge Davis, unlike his predecessor, refused to be swayed by politics or pressure. He called out attempts to discredit witnesses, sanctioned interruptions by the prosecution, and ensured Noah's communication was respected. When Assistant District Attorney Reynolds questioned Noah's reliability, the judge sternly reprimanded him. "This court will not tolerate intimidation of a vulnerable witness. Mr. Reynolds, proceed with professionalism or risk contempt." The final cross-examination, Noah's strength Reynolds, frustrated, tried to shake Noah's testimony. "You were upset, frightened. Could your memory be faulty?" Noah's signals were firm and clear. "I remember clearly." At one point, Max instinctively stood, placing his paws protectively on Noah's lap. A powerful nonverbal protest that silenced the courtroom. Even the most hardened jurors seemed moved. A mother's tear, a father's hope. Watching from the gallery, Diana and Isaiah held each other tightly, tears streaming silently. Months of fear, intimidation, and struggle culminated in this moment. Their son's silent courage finally breaking through. Their fight had been not just against a false narrative, but against a culture designed to silence Black voices. The verdict that changed a community. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Isaiah Bennett was acquitted of all charges. More than that, the trial exposed the museum's systemic racial profiling, triggering calls for investigations, resignations, and reforms. Beyond the courtroom. A movement is born. Noah's silence had become his strength, his bond with Max, his voice. The Bennetts founded the Equal Access Foundation, advocating for children with communication disabilities and fighting discrimination. Noah returned to school with Max by his side, his voice slowly returning, but his message already loud and clear. Final words: when silence speaks, the world must listen. In a powerful moment at a community rally, Noah stepped onto the stage, his hand resting on Max's head. He spoke softly but with undeniable clarity. "They tried to silence me because of who I am, but Max helped me find another way to speak. Everyone deserves to be heard, even when words fail." The crowd erupted in applause, tears flowing freely. Have you ever seen someone find their voice in the most unexpected way? Noah and Max's story reminds us that sometimes silence is not absence, but the beginning of a louder truth. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to amplify the voices too often ignored.